Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Stop and Listen podcast. If you're back returning to the channel, thank you for coming back and watching another episode. And if you're new to the podcast, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you'll enjoy what you hear. And let's go and dive in. We're going to be talking episode 6. And today we're talking about con artists. Before we dive into that, we'll have Coors Light here to keep our whistle wet throughout this podcast. So, con artists. When people hear that, they think to mind someone who tricks someone out of something, whether it be money, tangible goods, whatever it may be. And this reminds me of a story of back when I was a kid. It takes me back to when I was 18. When I was 18 years old, I worked at a convenience store at a high school for a large chain of convenience stores. And a buddy of mine, we had met at a community college. We went to high school together. He moved his senior year, and we run into each other again at college. And the reason why he comes into play in this picture is he's not the con artist, but he does play a big part. He got me the job with this convenience store. He was doing maintenance for him, such as painting and things of that nature for him. Like they had car washes and, cleaning the pumps and pressure washing the concrete and such. Well, he got me into that, and it was kind of a nice gig. We were kids, still in school, but we needed to make a little extra money. So they paid our gas, things that we had to drive our own vehicles and things like that. So they wanted us to work 40 hours a week. Didn't matter what the 40 hours were. We could have worked them all in 2 days. We could have worked at night. Didn't matter. They just wanted 40 hours on the clock from both of us. So we did that. And, of course, as you bounce around from store to store, you get to know a lot of the managers. And this one particular manager we become close with. I won't mention her name to protect her, but we'll just call her Mary. And, of course, funny enough, one of the manager's names was Mary, but this is not the one I'm referring to. So anyway. Man, that stuff's good. So, got close with her. And, of course, as we worked there, we got to kind of see the ins and outs of things, of how his convenience store worked and things like that, even though we were mainly doing maintenance on the outside. Well, one day she was out there smoking a cigarette and not complaining. A lot of the managers complained. She wasn't really a complainer, but she was, just kind of telling us the problems with that store she had. And one of them was, she's like, I just need someone to work. She said, I keep hiring people. They keep leaving, hire, leave. I keep training them. It's just a big waste of my time. And I didn't think much of it when she was talking. I'm just listening to her. But later that night, I got to thinking, this maintenance thing, it's summertime. It's getting hot. It's getting kind of aggravated. School's about to start up in the fall anyway. I said, that's going to be hard to do maintenance during that, so maybe I can find something I could do in the evening. So the next day, we had to go to the store and finish working over there. I got to talk to her. I said, how long you need somebody? And she said, well, if I could get somebody to work for me, I don't know, maybe a month, 2 months, something like that, I think that'd be okay. And I said, well, I'll do it for you. You just show me what I need to do, and I'm not above working at a convenience store. Again, I was a kid, in school, so it didn't matter anything to me. Well, she kind of taught me the ropes of how everything worked. And it was a little store, a little like an express store, so you had pumps on both sides of the building. It was a little cracker box, type of convenience store, just some drink, just small stuff. Well, I got to know a lot of the customers. They'd come in and out of the store, and one guy in particular started coming in there a lot. Or I started to know him. Maybe he had been coming there. I'm not sure. And real nice guy, a little bit older than me. I say older. He's probably 30, about 10 years older than me. And, we just kind of hit it off. Because back then I was big into the country rap theme, so to speak. That was getting kind of popular then. And this guy kind of gave off that same vibe. So, and my buddy that got me the job, we were kind of the same way. So, ended up becoming friends with this guy over time, and we got to where we actually swapped trucks with each other. And he, for about a week. Well, when I got my truck back, I noticed inside the truck there was a 2-pound dumbbell. I guess this is how, I guess naive I was as a kid. And I was like, 2-pound dumbbell. What is this for? This guy's working out in the truck. And it didn't make sense to me. And I started seeing cut straws everywhere, little pieces of straws. I never seen anything like that. Hadn't been around drugs. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't think nothing of it. I just cleaned it up and cleaned my truck out and threw it out. Well, as time went on, Mary, the manager of the store, she said to me, "Hey, have you noticed that, we'll call him Mike. Have you noticed that Mike is kind of thinned down and it's like he's losing his teeth and stuff?" I said, I have noticed. I said, but he claimed to be amateur MMA, so we thought maybe he was maybe just bad at fighting, just getting the crap beat out of him. I didn't know. So we, we just kind of played it off. We were concerned about it because he's a good friend of ours, but, didn't think nothing of it too much after that. Well, I come into the store one day to start working my night shift, and Mary told me, she said, "Did you hear about Mark?" Or Mike, whatever I'm calling the guy. Mike. And I said, no. I said, "Well, what's wrong?" She's like, he told me he was diagnosed with cancer. And I was like, "Cancer?" I said, "Golly," I said, "This guy's 30 years old. Looked to be good health, And I said, "Man, that's awful." And he came in, I don't want to say it was later that evening or maybe it was the next evening. So he came into the store, and as I was talking to him, I said, "Man, I hope it doesn't bother you." I said, "But Mary told me about, your thing." He's like, said, "Yeah, man." He said, and he pulled his shirt up and showed me this, looked like a bandage, like a massive gauze pad right near his, I want to say appendix area, something like that. So I said, "What's that?" He said, "Well, they had the biopsy stuff. This is where they're healing it." And again, I'm no doctor, so I just took his word for it. Well, as time went on, of course, we talked about it for a little bit. I told him, I'd be thinking about him, stuff like that. Well, as time went on, he started saying how strapped he was for money. And this guy, I would have never thought he was strapped for money for me. He was a part-time fireman, and he did other stuff on the side, which I thought the MMA fighting was where he was coming up with his other money. So when he made money from fights or whatever. And but he told me, he said, "Man," he said, "I'm getting strapped for cash." And he didn't ask for money, but I could tell he needed money. So me working at a convenience store, wasn't making a lot, probably making $8 an hour, but, felt for the guy. So I started giving him money. He claimed it was to help pay for his prescription. So I gave him, maybe like $50 a year, $50 there. And that lasted for a little while. And it got to the point where I said, "Look, man," I said, "I can't just give you the money anymore." I said, "But what I can do," I said, "I can, if you got something you could sell, is there anything, I need something tangible now. It's just getting, not out of hand, but somewhat out of hand for me." Sorry about that. Got pet birds inside, and they were talking away. I was worried the mic was going to pick it up. Still got some more in the background, but they're a little further away. So anyway, I pick up where I left off. So I said, "Hey, man, I need something tangible in return." I said, "Is there anything you have to sell?" And he had some deer stands and hunting apparel, accessories, things like that. So I was purchasing that stuff from him. Then after that kind of dried up, it got to the point where it's like, man, I just don't have any money anymore. So I'm making $8 an hour. I'm in school. I have nothing else to give. And I felt bad for him because I was under the impression this was all going toward prescriptions, medicines. So he said, "No," he understood. There's no hard feelings. And he come in one day. He said, "Hey, man," he said, "I'm gonna enter in a MMA fight in the lower part of the state near the beach." He said the grand prize is like $3,000. I said, "That's cool." I said, "Man, are you?" I didn't want to discourage him. I said, "Man, do you think you're up for that?" And he said, he said he was or whatever. So I didn't question him about it. So a couple of days went by after that, and me and my buddy that got me the job originally, we were hanging out at my place. We bought some beer. We was about to start drinking, and as soon as we walked in, I get a phone call from Mark. He said, "Man, is there any way you can take me down there to the coast tonight?" He said, "Got to get started and stuff first thing in the morning, signed up. Fights tomorrow evening." Mind you, this is at 12:30 at night, and it's about a 3.5 hour drive to the coast from where I'm at to this particular beach. And of course, I look over I told him, I was like, "Yeah," I said, I guess we can do that." And I looked at my buddy, "So you down?" He's like, "Heck yeah, man, it's a road trip. It sounds fun." So we load up in the truck, we go pick him up, and we take him down there. Well, when we get there, we get to say this was a bad area is an understatement. It was it looked like a little drug community. This place was terrible. So when we got there, I don't even know if people around here had running power, running water. I don't know what these people have. But it is a rough little area. And this guy looked like he could handle his own, but when I dropped him off, this is at 3-something in the morning, said, you sure you're going to be okay down here, man? I said, it looks kind of sketchy. He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "I got some buddies that live here." I said, "Okay." These two guys walk out of a house. Everything, seemed legitimate as it can at 3:30 in the morning. So I said, "Well, just, give me a shout. Let me know how things go." I said, "We got to head back up to, we got to head back home." So we go home, and we get back, and the next day I'm at work. Hadn't heard from Mark yet, which I wasn't surprised. He said the fight was that evening, so I was leaving him alone or whatever. Well, a guy walked into the store, and he said, "Hey, have you been talking to Mark?" I said, "Yeah." He said, I said, "Yeah." I said, found out he had cancer. He said, the guy looked at me, straight face as could be, looking at me. He said, "Cancer?" He said, "That boy ain't got cancer." He said, "He's a crackhead." And I froze for a minute. I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" I said, "No." I said, "He showed us the scar." He's like, "No, man." He said, "That guy." He said, "No." He said, "That boy's on drugs." He said, "You ain't noticed his teeth falling out and stuff?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." I said, "But he got into MMA, so I thought he was just getting the crap beat out of him." He's like, "Nah, man." He said, that boy's on drugs." So, of course, that aggravated me. Had no way to get a hold of Mark. I guess he didn't have a cell phone. I don't remember what the reason was. Looking back, I should have known all this was a bunch of shit. But, at the time, it didn't register with me. I was 18 years old. And, so anyway, I called his girlfriend. I knew his girlfriend. And I said, we'll call her Jennifer. I said, "Jennifer," I said, "I got something to tell you about," because she was on the impression he had cancer too. I said, "I got to tell you something about Mark." I said, "Yeah, I think I need to see you in person to tell you this." So I go over to her place and took a case of beer because I knew this probably wasn't going to end well. So I show up, and we're sitting in her Jeep, and I got off probably at midnight. So here I am, 1 o'clock in the morning, sitting in a Jeep in this woman's driveway and drinking beer. And I told her, and she was going off on him, and I should have known and all this. And I was like, "Yeah." I said, I'm kind of like you. And she, thankfully, I kind of had my head on my shoulder back then. She's like, "Well, I bet you if I slept with you, I'd get back at him for this. Being that we're friends and he's your friend and stuff." I said, "Nah, so you don't want to do that." So that's just the alcohol talk. I said, "Nah, don't. We'll handle this." So anyway, next day comes by. I talked to that guy that come in the store and was telling me that all this was a fraud. I know there's a lot to this story, and hopefully you're keeping track with it. So, guy comes in the store. He said, "Has that guy asked you for any money?" I said, "Man," I said, "it don't sound like a lot." I said, "But for a kid that's making $8 an hour," I said, "he's got $1,200 from me." I said, "Granted, some things I was able to buy from him, so I had some stuff in hand that I could sell if I needed to." He said, "You want your money back?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "But what do you mean by that?" He said, "I'm going to come by here later tonight when you get off." He said, "We're going to get this handled." He said, "I'm going to call Mark right now." So I was like, okay. So at this point, I'm getting a little sketched out because, again, I ain't never been around something like this. This was all new to me. So he goes and, he comes back later that evening. He said, let's get in the car. He said, I talked with Mark. He said he's going to meet us up here at this convenience store near the interstate. And he said, that boy's in trouble with those guys you took him to down in Charleston. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, he owes him a bunch of money, too. He said, that's his drug dealer. I was like, are you kidding me? I said, you mean tell me he sent me down there at 3 o'clock in the morning to a drug house? He said, yeah. He said, well, we're going to go get it straightened out. He said, now, if you won't, he said, I know a guy that's in the Bloods. And I as a kid, I was like, Bloods, that's a gang, right? They got, again, I know it sounds crazy. Don't make fun of me, but I had no idea back then. So he said, I got a guy, the Blood. He said, he'll get your money back for you if you want. I was like, look, man. I said, nah, I don't want to get in. So he's like, no, it's nothing like that. He said this will be more of an intimidation thing. Thankfully, I don't remember any of these people's names, so I don't have to hide their identity because I don't. This was all such a blur looking back. But anyway, he said it's going to cost you, and we'll call this guy Bill. Anyway, it's not a Bloods type gang member name, but that'll protect anybody. So we'll call him Bill. So he called up Bill, and we go pick him up, and it was in a kind of sketchy area. Guy, he said, we showed up. He said, how much you gonna charge? How much you gonna charge him to go, meet this guy? Because the problem was my money was at risk from the guys that I dropped him off at in the lower part of the state. He owed them money. He owed me a lot of money. So it's one of those things. I wanted my money first because he owed me the money first. Of course, being 18 years old, I didn't stand a chance. They didn't give a crap about me. It was their money. We're talking drug dealers and I don't know. It's thinking about it now, it sounds crazy. I don't know. This is like something out of a movie. So we picked the gang member up, the Blood or whatever he was, and again that I'll explain at the end of the story. So we go up there to the convenience store. And this dude that we picked up, he was big. I mean, I ain't small, but this guy was he's a big boy. And he gets out, and the guy that drove me over there to get this guy, Mark's friend, he said, we'll go park over. He said he'll get this taken care of. So he goes over there. About 10 minutes goes by, and I could vaguely see what was going on the other side of the parking lot, trying to basically pretend like I wasn't there. And I see Mark get in the truck with those guys. They leave. Bill come back to the car, and he said, you ain't getting your money, man. He said, them boys, he said, he's in trouble with them other boys. He's like, man, I hate you out of $100. He said, I did my part. He's, basically I got screwed. So anyway, I go back. So that night just kind of, I don't know, that night, I don't even remember how that night ended. That was just a very weird night. Pretty sure I just went back home and just probably laid awake trying to figure out what just happened. So we go the next day. I'm back at work, talked to my manager, and she said, I told her about everything. She didn't know how much he had been lying to us, to the point where supposedly he needed a kidney transplant. And this boss lady of mine, this manager, thought so much of this guy. He got us good. He conned us good that she was going to give him a kidney, if that tells you anything. So that's because he claimed his kidneys were failing. Of course, I tell her, and she blew up. She was cussing him for everything he was worth, rightfully so. But so that went on, and look, it is probably, let's say, a week after all this. I didn't hear from any of those people. The gang member, his friend, him, I didn't hear or see nobody. Well, his friend come walking in one night, and this was probably 9:30 at night, and this guy was friendly to me. He's a biker type guy, but he just liked to ride. He didn't seem like he was a troublemaker. Well, he comes in the store, and he said something. I thought he was messing around. So I kind of jabbed back and was playing. He said, "You better watch your mouth when you're talking to me." And I kind of laughed like, man. He's like, he said, I'm not kidding. He said, better watch your back. And then he walked out the door. Well, of course, at this point, I was a nervous wreck because I didn't know who I just got involved with. I didn't know what was going on. And I very quickly got out of that job and never heard from any of those people ever again. I was out all my money. I did eventually see that guy on Facebook later down the road and saying that he had moved back to the lower part of the state. He was living down there. And, but, telling this story, and there's more to it, some stuff I don't want to get into, but it's just listening to myself tell this story to you guys. It just goes to show you that people, we take for granted. Of course, in today's society, I know a lot of people don't trust anybody. And society's gotten crazy, and I understand that. But this guy, it just showed me how people will do anything to con you. I mean, to lie about having cancer, only to find out that all that money, of course, to cut straws looking back, it was all for drugs. It was he's on oxycodone or whatever. I think it was Roxy, whatever you call him. He was on that, and he's doing that stuff in my truck. I mean, this guy crossed so many lines. And I talked with a few police in the area that used to come into that little store, and they kind of said, man, without any real proof, it's a he said, she said, and, we don't have, he didn't steal anything. You willingly gave him the stuff. And, as a kid, I was frustrated because I felt like I got duped by this guy. But, there's to take advantage of someone like that, it just blows my mind. And we see it happen all the time. It happens with elderly people at home. They get stuck on those, those mail-in things where, they become like jelly members of the month, and they just con these people out of money. And it just amazes me that we as humans can do that to another human being. And it's really sad, but of course, going through stuff like that, and that wasn't the only instance I've been through. I've been through a lot of crappy people in my life, and I have many more stories to tell y'all. They get a lot better than this one. But to think me as an 18-year-old kid, grew up in a private school, had a good life, wasn't around anything really negative growing up, and I think that had a lot to do with my naiveness around people. But it just showed me, it made me, as bad as things happen, and if you're watching this and you've been conned, it sucks, and I understand that. I've been there, obviously, and got involved with some bad people, and not knowingly could have had my life at danger and didn't even know it. But you learn to not distrust people. People used to say, I trust everybody till they give me a reason not to. Well, I've gotten to the point in my life because of circumstances, and I think in today's society you almost have to be this way. Don't treat anybody bad, but don't give them your trust till they've earned it. I'm to the point now where society's got to where they should earn your trust instead of getting to the point where they lost your trust. Just another little life lesson I learned. But hope you guys enjoyed the story. Have many more stories like this to come. Again, this is just things that happened in my life. If you've had something similar happen to you and you want to talk about it, you want me to share it on this podcast, you let me know. If not, chime in next time and or tune in next time, and we'll have some more story for you guys, or maybe we'll get off on politics or whatever it may be. But thanks again for watching, guys. This is Stop and Listen, and I'm your host, Alex. Thanks again.